Whew! So you might be able to tell how excited I am based on the smile on my face and the sound of my voice, but finally, we have a legal and free version in the US App Store only right now of Delta Emulator for iPhone. So in this video, we're going to install it, walk you guys how to actually set it up, download some ROMs, and eventually show you guys exactly what the actual Delta Emulator brings you for iOS. So without further ado, let's get right into this video, and huge shout out to Riley Testut for persevering through all this and getting us Delta Emulator for the iPhone finally. Let's get into it. So let's hop right into this video, everybody, and as you may or may not know, I'm a big Pokemon fan, so GBA or Delta Emulator coming over to iOS in the US-based App Store is absolutely amazing. Now, the first link in the description will be the link to actually find the Delta Emulator in the App Store. Again, this is going to be only US-based for right now. If you are maybe in the EU, then you're going to have to sideload it via Riley Testut's Alt Store, which again is supposed to be relatively simple, and it does cost 1.5 euros per year to actually get access to that emulator and get access to that Alt Store, but maybe we'll make a separate video on how to sideload applications. But if you're in the US, you're in luck. Just click that link in the description, and we do not have any affiliation with Delta or with Riley Testut or with Alt Store. It's just, I've been a fan of this application for the better part of 7 years now, and I'm just happy that it's available now on the App Store. But you click that link, you download it, it's absolutely free, and then you open up the application, and then voila! Here is your actual Game Boy emulator or your Game Boy Advance emulator, and the first thing that you're greeted with is going to be your ROM library. Now we're going to talk about how to actually add ROMs in a second, but you can swipe between Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and the beauty of it is that it's not just limited to those two systems. It actually supports Nintendo ROMs, Super Nintendo ROMs, N64 ROMs, as well as Nintendo DS ROMs. But for the sake of this video, we're going to stick to Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advanced, but everything else is relatively the same at the end of the day. But now before we jump into all the settings, I'm just going to show you guys how to actually get ROMs installed on here because that's what most people want to know. Now to add a ROM is very simple. You just press this plus button, but before you do that, one thing that they did have to separate with Delta is the ability to actually download these. But now that you're downloaded, go into the Delta application, press this plus button, press Files, and then you'll have all your zip files, and by default you'll be on your most recent. So you tap on the zip file, all you do is you press Open, and then voila, there is that game, and it's ready to be used immediately, which is absolutely amazing. And then to actually open it up, you just click it, and it's going to open up the Delta emulator, and it knows that it's a Game Boy Color game, so it's going to open the Game Boy Color emulator skin, and you just go through it. And just like that, you can create a new game and start playing your game right away. And now we're going to touch on the actual layout of the buttons and everything in a second, but I did want to go through the settings really quickly. So we're going to press on the main menu, we're going to go back to the menu here, and it does kind of white out and pause the game that you're currently playing whenever you are playing a game and you want to go back to the main menu. But now as you download ROMs, these are going to go into your library of ROMs, which will be categorized based on system. So if we got a Nintendo DS ROM, it'll create another slide over for you to be able to download and actually play those DS ROMs. But if you go into the settings, you do have a few options here. The beauty about Delta is that it actually supports third-party controllers via Bluetooth. So if you want to connect your PlayStation or your Xbox or an MFI controller, you can do that, and then you can actually dictate exactly which ones you're going to be using and what those buttons are going to be doing and what they're actually emulating. So that is how you control that. And it supports up to 4 different save states for your controllers. And then down here is where you can actually manage all of your skins. So if you click on the Game Boy Advance, you do have a couple skins that are preloaded. Every single emulator does have one that's already preloaded in there. You have a portrait and a landscape mode one. This is a GBA one. This is going to be the Game Boy Color one, which is relatively similar, except the landscape version is a little bit different. And then you have things like your Nintendo DS, right? Because the Nintendo DS is dual screen. So this does take advantage of everything. And then side to side, that's how it works. We go to Nintendo, this is the skin that you're given. Now you can technically go online and download more skins if you want to, but that's something I'm going to leave for maybe somebody on the more expert side of this because I like to keep it plain Jane. Now you do have the ability to change the controller opacity, so you're able to change exactly how see-through it is versus how stagnant it is or static it is, so that's good to see. You have this toggle right here, which is respect silent mode, essentially saying that if you do put your phone in silent mode, then it will also shut off the music coming from the actual gameplay, and if you turn off silent mode, then it's going to have that beautiful theme music. You have haptic feedback, which is my favorite part about this entire thing, or at least one of my favorite parts about it. The haptic feedback is absolutely amazing. It almost feels like you're pressing actual buttons. So for me, I like to keep that on. It does drain your battery a decent amount. And now let's talk about Delta Sync. Now Delta Sync has been a little bit hit or miss so far. I remember it worked perfectly back in the jailbreak days and the side loading days that I was doing. But basically it does exactly what it sounds like. It syncs all your data across all your devices. So if you have the Delta emulator on your iPad and on your iPhone and maybe another iPhone and you want to make sure that you're syncing across all the devices, and let's say you save a state on your iPhone but then pick it up on your iPad, that is what Delta Sync is. It relies on either Dropbox or Google if you want to turn that on. Definitely turn it on if you want to try it out. I believe it will work eventually. It's only been a couple hours since this has been officially released onto the App Store, so I'm sure there's some kinks and things like that. But overall, I remember it working extremely well. We're just keeping it turned off for now. That is all the settings that you have with this Delta emulator, which is absolutely amazing. But now I do want to walk you guys through exactly how to play a game, how it actually works, what the functionality is like. So I'm going to open up, again, Pokemon Red. We're going to restart it from the very beginning. And again, if I go down here, so I just turn silent mode off, and you can hear the game is playing in the background. So again, you have that beautiful classic music, which is awesome, but I'm going to go back into silent mode, and it should immediately turn off the music. So as you can see, yes, it's still playing, but the music is actually turned off. So that's good to see. Now, it works the same way as any other Game Boy. So you press A, you get that beautiful haptic feedback. We'll press New Game. And you do have some menu settings, right? So if you go into the menu, you have the ability to save the state, which is awesome, load the state. So if you guys are familiar with different Pokemon games, you know that you can save the game inside the Pokemon game itself, as if it's on the ROM or the cartridge. But if you're playing another game where you want to stop in the middle of it, or stop in the middle of a Pokemon game as well, maybe in the middle of a battle where you can't normally save, you can then save that state and then resume from there. You also have the ability to add cheat codes if you want to. You can fast forward to make this go faster, and you can hold a button. So if there's a game where you need to mash a button over and over and over again, that'll automatically do it for you. Let's press resume, and then you can see how quickly this is moving. So honestly, if you really want to, you could do a speed run of this game and finish it relatively quickly if you know exactly what you're doing. And I remember running through these games so quickly and just having so much fun with it. So I'm a big fan of all the fast forwarding features and things like that. But that is pretty much the gist of the entire application. It's very simple, and it's simple on purpose. You have the ability to add ROMs if you download them first off the internet. Again, make sure you're going to reputable websites and things like that. I'll leave one or two down below. Again, we're not affiliated with any of these whatsoever, so download and install at your own risk. And then, like I said, you have your menu setting over there, and then your ability to use your different ROMs and play them in real time. And again, the syncing feature and the haptic feedback are definitely things that set it apart. I'm just very happy that Delta Emulator is fully on the App Store in the US again. Unfortunately, it's a little bit more difficult in the EU, but still 100% possible. And shout out to Riley Testut and his team for really pushing forward. But let's finish up this video and go enjoy your new Delta Emulator, everybody. So that will do it for this video, everybody. I do want to take a second to again thank Riley Testut and the Alt Store and his development team, because they have persevered through the App Store red tape for years and years now at this point. We recently had him on our podcast to discuss all the new EU regulation that was happening and taking place that has finally allowed this to happen here in the US as well as out in the EU. So just so you guys are aware, you are able to download this in the US for free directly on the App Store, and that link will be down in the description down below. But if you are in the EU, you are able to sideload this via the Alt Store, and I believe it's going to cost 1.5 euros per year to have access to the Alt Store. So again, to me, that's also a no-brainer if you guys do want to get into that. But again, in the US, it's available fully for free on the App Store, and now we can play our beloved Pokemon games and Dragon Ball Z games and everything that we grew up with, like Kirby and Pac-Man, and it's just a very exciting time. I can't believe it took almost 15 years to get this to happen, but finally Apple has opened up and let us play our Game Boys on our iPhones. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys made it to the end, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so that I know that you made it to the end. And if you guys want to watch some other videos like this, click on one of these right here and leave a comment down below about how excited you are and if you're as excited as I am. Until next time, everybody, peace.